enforcement, believe it or not, we are still so behind the 8 ball. Does anybody know why we may do 4 or 8 hour blocks, either physical control, tactics, or whatever it might be? Does anybody know that? 4 8 hour blocks? It started 40 years ago. It started 40 years ago when you brought an officer in, you have to pay a minimum of 4 or 8 hours overtime. Stayed like that for 40 years. Nothing's changed. There's not one piece of research literature in the world that says training an officer for 4 hours a year will ever develop enough skills. Get away from me, man, to deal with that guy. Never. But yet we still do the same thing. See, we train people, but we never measure, do they learn what we train them to do? And that's where we need to start to try to change the way we do business. If you are training somebody to do something, you should measure the proficiency and the outcome. Is it retainable? Is it retrievable? Can they do it under stress? Can they document it? In de-escalation, law enforcement has been around since time began. There's really nothing really new about de-escalation. Well, there's a lot new because we understand the psychophysiological changes that go on during human aggression. We understand the dopamine release and the cortisol releases that actually change how you feel. That stuff is all new. You know, with the we've all been in MRIs. They have what they call fMRIs, functional magnetic resonant imaging machines. They have PET scan, SPECT. They got EEGs. They got multiple ways of measuring about how the brain operates. Neurologically, electrically, oxygenated, whatever it might be. So there's a lot of research. But officers and police in our profession have been de-escalating since time began. The only problem is not one piece of evidence to support it. And right now, there is such an illusion out there that, well, you should have de-escalated. Like de-escalation is the pixie dust of use of force mitigation. Not true. However, what I want you to do is right off the bat, just consider a few measures about measuring your officer's success when they de-escalate, when they mitigate force, when they diffuse situations, when they resolve conflicts. You do it all the time. Now, the issue is in litigation, I don't care if it's prosecutors or defense attorneys, depending on what side they're on. Officer, isn't it true? Aren't you trained to de-escalate the situation? Matter of fact, we saw that you obtained training in 2018. Then you attained another training in 2021. So you're highly trained in de-escalation. So why did you de-escalate the situation? The subject was an imminent threat towards my partner, not giving me any time to de-escalate the situation. Oh, is that true? Have you ever de-escalated anything effectively in the past, officer? Yes, I have. You have. You're going to testify in front of all these people that you have effectively de-escalated and mitigated force in the past. That's correct. Your Honor, I move for recess. Officer, you need to come back tomorrow and produce evidence when you've ever de-escalated anything in the past. So you have a situation. All of a sudden, you've got one camera angle, the guy, boom, taking a suspect down. But this time his head takes his table and splits him open. You're going to have every activist on the front, your patio, your lobby, yelling and screaming that this is perfect evidence that this police department does not have any de-escalation training, no force mitigation, no diffusion training, systemic police brutality. That's what they're going to sling at you. And the chances are we do not have anything to counteract those allegations. It's the whole thing about law enforcement. We do not collect the data. We don't collect it. Other people will collect it. Even if you do something simple like this, Chief, can we go to our computer experts and create a CAT entry that something says like conflict resolved, no use of force, no criminal arrest? Oh, yeah, sure, we could do that. So now, say you have a Motel 6 and you got room 101 and 102 yelling and screaming at you, banging on the doors because one was watching the game too much. So now the officers come and they're yelling and screaming, but the officers obviously diffuse the situation. Guys, really, what's going on? Well, we're just trying to watch the game and they're slamming on the door. All right, the game is over right now. What if I tell them, I'll make agree with them that they no longer bang on the door, but then you guys stop. Would you stop banging on the door? Yes. No MFing each other back and forth. No, officer. All right, I'm going to do this. What I can do is go talk to them and make sure they stop the same thing. Will that be happy for you? Yeah, that'll be fine. Room 102. Will you guys stop it, please? The game's over, but they were too loud. They agreed to shut it off. So if they agreed to shut it off, how about you? Okay, officer, we didn't mean to get it. So, all right, fine. Everybody happy with that? 2. 17, give me a 10-8. That's a conflict resolved, no use of force, no criminal arrest. So now, when you have the situation when an officer has to take someone to the ground and they only have one angle, and you have all the individuals at the front lobby yelling and screaming. This is evidence that this police department does no de-escalation, no force mitigation. First of all, do not try to paint the picture of my agency on one investigation that has not even been started yet. You are measuring activity based on one little angle from a phone without knowing all the facts. But let me tell you something. We constantly take a pulse of the community we serve. Lieutenant, how many situations have our officers responded to? Conflict resolved, no use of force, no criminal arrest. 2022, 2023, 735. Do you understand what that number means? 735 incidents when our officers have to respond to conflicts and resolve that with no criminal arrest. So don't tell me we don't know how to do that. The other opinion I have, if you do have that CAD entry, officers, if you do a trained maneuver, you should start to quantify and document it. De-escalation is a trained maneuver. Because right now, if I ask this officer, how many times have you ever de-escalated a situation? It's the same thing with use of force. See, litigation is about creating illusions to the jury. And we don't know how to quantify because we don't do it. God forbid there's a sniper that has to take a shot on a hostile deadly force situation. One of the first things they're going to want to know with that sniper is show me your cold bore shot log. See, snipers, when they have to take a threat out, that's a cold bore shot. That means no time to warm up. I'm not going to warm up and qualify, and then I have to do it. You have to take it out, put it bang, boom, and take that very, very precise shot. So they will show you all the different times. Okay, like say it's today. The weather is about 37 degrees. It's sunny out. Wind conditions is this. Take a shot. Here's my record. They have constant evidence of their cold bore shots. Do the same thing when it comes to de-escalation. The same thing with force. First of all, the issues about responding to resistance and aggression are obviously inaccurate. And many times we do not collect it granularly enough ourselves to defend our own guys and gals out there. The majority of one agency, Kev, can you do a use of force audit for our agency? No, I can't. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it's going to cost you an extensive amount of money. And the reason is, first of all, you're going to give me a printed out summary or a computer summary of all the data that you have collected through the use of force reports, which should say response to resistance and aggression. So you're going to collect all that. You're going to give it to me. And I'm going to say, okay, you had only how many deadly force encounters? Okay, let's take that out of the equation. Let's take out pointing the taser, pointing the weapon. Let's take that out. Now let me analyze what we're doing. So 90% here. What is a physical tactic? 90% physical tactics. So what I have to do now, I'll have to go back and read the reports. And then the reports are all going to be too generic. And then I'm going to have to interview all the officers. And then I'm going to have to watch all the videos. So we have to even change if we're going to analyze something. If you take somebody down, a takedown is a high liability area because of the possible medical implications that can occur. So you want to be able to, if you're training your officers to do ABC, ABC should be in the reports. So they can then quantify. So now say, for example, this officer, and at the last minute, boom, the guy kicks off the wall, spins, and his leg fractures. But the officer is trying to do a trained maneuver. I could have swore I shut this thing down. The officer is trying to do a trained maneuver. But at the last minute, the guy kicks off, his response was causes that injury. So officer, you took my client right to the ground, breaking my client's leg by your actions. Isn't that called decisive force? When you decide to take action, and because when you took him down, you broke my client's leg. Oh, well, that's an unintended consequence from a very well-trained action. Really? An unintended consequence from a very well-trained action. Okay? How many times have you used force within the last 3 years? I don't know. How many times in the last 4 or 5 years? I don't know. You want to be able to say things of this nature. I've responded to resistance and aggression on 7 occasions within the last 3 years. Out of the 7 responses to resistance and aggression, I deployed 3 rear entry takedowns, 2 arm wrap takedowns, 2 tasers, and 1 oleoresin capsicum. Out of the 7, there was 1 injury, and that was due to a size differential between me and the subject. Your Honor, I like to qualify this officer as knowledgeable on the stand. This officer has identified patterns of proficiency. So therefore, given a little bit more credibility, yeah, the guy does kick off the leg. His leg stays stabilized, which causes a spiral fracture. We have to start to change the way we do business when it comes to collection and analyzation of everything we do. Let's go back to use of force for a second. The same thing with this here, with the escalation, force mitigation. So, Chief, you hired me to teach the entire department, correct? Now, I'm going to say maybe 50% could be time and a half. The other 50% could be straight time. Why don't we take all that money and then what is the return of investment? Pardon me? You've just trained officers, all this physical use of force training for the past 3 years. What's your ROI? My what? Your return of investment. You mean to tell me you're spending a couple $100,000 on training people and you don't take a look, is it efficient or not? How do you measure efficiency? Oh, I measure it by what? No civil litigation? No criminal charges? I said, any company in the world, when you spend money, that's an investment. You want to look at the return of investment. The same thing with the escalation. Law enforcement, we are notoriously known for checking off a box. That's it. Well, it's not true. Yeah, it pretty much is. We trained our officers, and how do you know they were trained? We saw that they're trained. That doesn't mean they learned. I'll give you a little example. Let me pull.